Is Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 continuing its successful trajectory? How many are planning to buy the upcoming X-Plane 12? And what is the current situation on VR and flight simulators? What does the preferred flight simulator setup look like? Are we happy with our graphics cards? My name is Magnus and I'm the CEO of Navigraph, and I'll be presenting the results of these questions and more in this year's version of the Flight Sim Community Survey, the world's largest and most comprehensive survey of its kind. It feels amazing to be able to say, welcome to the 6th consecutive year of the Flight Sim Community Survey. For those of you who have been following along, you know that in 2016 and 2017, we organized the survey by ourselves. But since 4 years back, we're relying on our partners to reach as many flight simulator pilots as possible. That's right, all companies, add-on developers, interest organizations, and media outlets in the community can help in circulating the survey among their customers, users, members, and readers. If you want to get involved, reach out to us via survey@navigraph.com. The collective power of the community is very impressive. During the 10 days the survey was live, 24,200 respondents took the 93 questions long survey. That's 700 more than last year, and that's amazing. That's like more people in the little town that I was born in. We're of course very grateful that you chose to give us 20 minutes of your time to help guide projects and developments in the flight simulation community. And in a way, it's also a gift to yourselves, because by giving us your feedback, you can help create the community you want to be a part of in the future. So who are you, the respondents who took part in the survey? Well, 55% of you had never taken the survey before. And just like last year, more than half of the respondents were new to the Flight Simulation Community Survey. It's very refreshing with so many new pairs of eyes submitting replies to our questions. And what is remarkable, however, is that the majority of the results between surveys stay the same, despite 55% of the respondents being newcomers. This year, the gender distribution was same as previous years, the age distribution was almost identical, and the same goes for education, income, and country of origin. What does that mean? Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that the survey results are generally representative for all flight simulator pilots in the whole world, but it does seem to suggest that we're at least consistently sampling the same audience from year to year. What is this audience? Well, the customers, users, members, and readers of the 40 companies, add-on developers, interest organizations, and media outlets that have been partnering with us. Not only demographically are the respondents almost identical to previous years, also when it comes to the number of you working within the aviation or holding some sort of a pilot license, the numbers are strikingly similar. 17% of you work in some capacity in the aviation industry, and 25% of you have some formal aviation training. Just like last year, about 8% of you are enrolled in some sort of flight training, and 25% of you who are not are considering taking real-world aviation classes in the year to come. For this portion of the flight simulation community, the demand for realism is high because you know what aviation looks and feels like in the real world. It has to be as real as it gets, just of course adapted to the flight simulation workflow. In fact, we have a question which gives them some additional insight, namely the one about people's main purpose for flight simulation. Interestingly, in this year's survey, we have finally seen something that looks like a shift in the trend. More people fly for the purpose of casual gaming and entertainment, and less people fly for curiosity and the interest in aviation. Naturally, that makes us glance over to Xbox, because our hypothesis is that Xbox is the recruiting platform for beginner pilots and more casual flyers. Last year, 16.3% stated that they own an Xbox console. This year, it was 18.5%. Of the console owners, 54.6% say that they use Xbox for flight simulation. So indeed, we see an increase in Xbox users, which is no surprise really, given the launch of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 on its Xbox console 6 months ago. In fact, we were so curious about Xbox that we added this as a new option to the question in this survey, which normally gets the most interest and attention. Ladies and gentlemen, let me present to you the graph over the flight simulation software, which is the most popular among the survey respondents. Here we see that 5.7% of the total number of respondents fly flight simulators on Xbox at some occasion. Okay, well, that's interesting, but what really stands out in this graph is the popularity of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. It has grown from 75% compared to last year's 61%. However, even if many eyes have been on Microsoft lately, it's important to note that also X-Plane has grown in popularity. Furthermore, we'll also note that a lot of users have transitioned from prepared version 4 to version 5, and that DCS World is an increasingly popular combat simulator. Here, you can get a better sense of the popularity of the different major platforms in a graph that groups the various versions. It summarizes my comments so far and also shows that the popularity of prepared has dropped somewhat together with previous versions of Microsoft flight simulators. The survey contains more detailed graphs on how people have moved between different platforms, and you can take a look at it for yourself by downloading the full report on the Navigraph blog. In the Flight Simulator platform section, there's also a question which aims to investigate the likelihood of respondents purchasing the next version of X-Plane 12 when it becomes available. 50.4% say it's very likely or possible that they will buy the new simulator when it comes out. Okay, what else did we promise to show you? Right, the current situation on VR. Here's Andy, our community manager, with the latest from the survey.
So thanks a lot, Magnus. It's been extremely interesting to work on the survey just like last year. All aspects are important and interesting, but maybe one of those that stood out the most this year was the VR section. Just looking at the number of users who owns a VR headset now, it's been sitting at about 20% during 2019 and 2020, but now we see that almost 25% of the community owns a VR headset, and about 15% of the respondents owns a VR headset and use it for flight simulation. We wanted to ask these 15% of the respondents that use it for flight simulation some follow-up questions as well. So the first follow-up questions for the VR respondents was which VR headset you use. Last year the Oculus Rift followed by the Oculus Rift S was the most popular VR headset. Now we see that the Oculus Quest 2 is very popular, but the first place is taken by the HP Reverb G2. So since the last survey, Microsoft Flight Simulator VR has gone out of its beta state and is now used by over 60% of the respondents. X-Plane and DCS continues to be popular flight sim software for VR as well. So the most common type of flying in VR is VFR, which has increased by 6.2% this year. Second place we find flying in IFR, which has increased by 3.7%. This puts casual flying without rules on a third place this year. So let's now have a look at to what extent VR is being used when flying. So last year about 40% of the respondents spent only 10% of the time while flying in VR, while about 16% of the respondents spent 100% of the time when flying in VR. This year, however, about 28% of the respondents spent 10% of the time, and about 27% of the respondents spent 100% of the time in VR. So this all suggests that VR is being used to a greater extent than before. So during the last 3 years, we've been asking our users what plugins or mod they're using to improve their VR experience. This year, the Navigraph Charts in-game panel was released and has since become a popular plugin together with the Avitab EFB and Oculus Home that were the most popular plugins in 2019 and 2020. So that was a quick VR insight from me, but now back to you, Magnus.
Thank you, Andy. Looking at the graph over popular auxiliary systems for the flight simulator, we see that 15% have a VR headset as a part of their simulator setup. Other popular equipment is throttle quadrant, pedals, joystick, and yoke. Only 5.5% run a bare minimum setup with just a computer and a screen. This year, we modified the question a bit to find out if FAA or EASA approved flight training devices were any popular. They weren't. At least not among the survey respondents. Last but not least, I want to draw your attention to the prevalence of hot towels in the flight simulation community. I love it too. There's nothing like landing after a long flight feeling relaxed and refreshed. Okay, maybe that was a joke. There are roughly 80 more questions in the survey, and we won't have time to cover them all in this video, but you're more than welcome to download the final report from the Navigraph blog. Here, we also share the raw dataset, which you can download if you want to do some analysis of your own. If you reach any interesting insights, please share those with the rest of us. As always when designing the survey, we try to capture at least one event or phenomena which has been prevalent or defining in the past year. This year we have chosen to investigate supply chain disturbances and graphics cards. We asked the question, in the past 12 months, have you not been able to purchase any of the following hardware for any of the following reasons? And the reasons we gave were not in stock, too expensive, too long delivery times, and of course not interested in buying. Flight controls and graphics cards were the ones where the most common reason for not buying was stated to be not in stock. We included gaming chair in the set of items because a chair doesn't contain any electronics. Not in stock was not the biggest reason for not buying the chair, it was rather price. However, VR headsets and Xbox consoles ship pretty quickly even though they contain electronics, so we weren't able to trace any evidence of semiconductor shortage, setting up the question this way. Maybe manufacturers of VR headsets and Xbox consoles have bigger and more secure supply chains, but that's just a guess. Further digging into graphics cards, an 8GB Nvidia card is the most common, also this year. It turned out that over 21% are not happy with their graphics cards and are potentially in the market for a new one. As seen in the diagrams that just flashed before you, 17% of the respondents haven't purchased a new graphics card since it's out of stock, and 33% haven't purchased a graphics card last year because it was simply too expensive. This is all we got for you in this video version of the report. To get the full report of all of the 93 questions, go over to blog.navigraph.com. And let me close by saying thank you to all of you who participated, respondents as well as partners. If you would like to get involved as a partner next year, please write us at survey@navigraph.com. And if you have any comments or anything to add to these findings, please write us in a suitable comments field near you, a Discord server or a forum, and we will try to find you and perhaps shed some lights on the findings. That's all for now. Cheers.